Thank you very much for joining us and staying with us here on News Center. And like I mentioned, that is our top story this morning. And it's also the subject of our Twitter poll, in which we're asking you if you support the computer misuse and cybercrimes law. That is our Twitter poll this morning. Quite a number of tweets coming here, and we'll sample them in a few moments. Keep them coming. I will sample them after we have our discussion here in studio. Eric Zakaria, I've just stumbled on yours. You say, big yes, I support watu washike adabu. Thank you very much. That's Eric from Kiambu Githunguri. Thank you for your tweet there. Courage Lenny, you say I support the bill 100%. Okay, Andrew J. Franklin, thank you for watching. You say, no, there are too many ambiguities and gray areas that will simply have a chilling effect on free expression of opinions and ideas. Much too easy to prosecute perceived enemies of the state, along with child pornographers and purveyors of fake news. All right, thank you very much for your tweets. Keep them coming. Hashtag is KTN News Center, or you can choose to tweet me at Betty M. Kialom. All right, so before we get into our discussion, let's just have something here that's going to lay the foundation of our conversation. And now to the controversial computer and cybercrimes bill. And like I mentioned earlier, you will have to be extra cautious about what you do on social media. Publishing false information will land you a 2-year jail term or a 5 million shillings fine, while something as simple as sharing your password could land you in trouble. Rita Tnina has the highlights of the bill, which imposes the highest penalties on child pornography, with a 25-year jail term or 25 million shillings fine. Take a look.
The digital era has brought with it a revolution in the passage of information, with various social media platforms being used to relay information to millions of people in seconds. But now you will have to think twice about what you post on social media or what you do with your computer after President Uhuru Kenyatta assented to the Computer and Cybercrimes Bill 2017.
I think from today, it will be a crime to knowingly share your password, even in the office, with any other person in the office.
A person who intentionally publishes false, misleading or fictitious data or misinforms with intent that the data shall be considered or acted upon as authentic will be liable to a fine not exceeding 5 million shillings or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years or both. Critics have argued that the context of false information may be used to stifle press freedom.
Writing anything that is false, like fake news, will be a crime, effective from today. So the social media users, those who use WhatsApp and they want to defame others, those who use Facebook, use other platforms, Telegram and the rest, you must know that it is going to be a crime.
Publishing, producing or possessing child pornography through a computer will land you 25 years in prison or a fine not exceeding 25 million shillings or both. Several corruption scandals in the country, such as the 791 million shilling NYS scam, saw the hacking of the IFMIS system. Under the new law, unauthorized interception, which results in significant financial loss or threatens national security, comes with a fine not exceeding 10 million shillings or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years or both.
We have also come up with an aspect called the critical systems, critical infrastructure information system. Big systems, like in government, in banks, are going to be licensed as a critical systems because they have a higher impact on issues to do with cybercrime.
Computer forgery could have one slapped with a 10 million shilling fine or a 5-year prison term or both. Cyberbullying and cyberstalking, where one repeatedly communicates directly or indirectly with another person to cause a person apprehension or fear of violence, will cost you 20 million shillings or land you in jail for a term not exceeding 10 years or both. A 20 million shilling fine or a 10-year jail term could be slapped on a person who unlawfully gains, occasions loss, or obtains an economic benefit to oneself or for another person through cyber fraud. Cyber espionage has a 20-year prison term or a 10 million shilling fine or both.
Espionage is not only happening in politics, but also in the commercial environment, where organizations, because of competitive pressure, are able to steal data from one organization to another. So that is also a crime covered.
Rita Tinina, KTN News.
All right, so in a matter of seconds, we'll be getting into a discussion around that. But let's just take a look at some graphics, just highlighting once more the hefty fines to those offenses. Let me just take you through that. And as you can see on our screens there, all right, so the offense, the first in there, unauthorized access, the fine is going to be 5 million shillings and the sentence is 3 years. Also, you have cyber espionage. You have a 10 million shillings fine there and 20 years. Oh, that's a lot. 20 years. Then, of course, you have distribution of fake news there. That's 5 million, and of course the sentence is 2 years. And then you have child pornography, which of course has the highest fines at 20 million shillings and 25 years jail term. So those are the offenses and the fines and the sentences of those particular offenses. Let's get into our discussion right now. And I want to, of course, reintroduce my guest, Dennis Bikambo, who's an ICT entrepreneur. We are also joined by Demas Kiprano, who's a senior legal officer at Article 19. So, Demas, I want to start with you. Because you have been following this for some time now, and maybe you can also highlight the work that you've done behind the scenes. What is your take on the president assenting to this particular law?
Well, this law is quite problematic. And if you look at it properly, you'll find that there are a lot of unconstitutional provisions. And they are so unconstitutional, so much so that you discover that some cases that were decided by the High Court last year that made pronouncements on how you can limit free speech have been ignored totally. And what you find is that provisions such as those criminalizing fake news actually are a replica to criminal defamation, insofar as it does not really follow that model whereby you can, in an open democracy like Kenya, you can talk about anything, except when you are propagating war, inciting violence, advocacy for hatred. Yeah, but they've made it so that any information that is not authenticate, you cannot be able to authenticate, becomes criminalized. So just like the report you had given about the dam, if I had relatives downstream and I tell them, get out, I think something is about to happen, and perhaps the rains reduce, then I would be liable. But the inverse is quite a disaster if I keep my mouth shut. Right. Yeah, and people die downstream. Actually, and in the business of news and the business of information, no information is 100%, even in science. What scientists thought before Einstein was turned upside down afterwards, right? After his theories of relativity and everything like that. So in an open and democratic society like Kenya, people should be able to talk freely. And just to talk about last year's election cycle, we had the army of bloggers representing the government, and what they were doing was exactly what our representatives are making illegal. You know? Yes. But then look at the fines. I'm wondering what Kenyans are these fines like targeting. We've seen corruption convictions the last week, where someone is fined 1.6 million and so on and so forth. People who stole billions. Yet for false information, you're potentially going to be fined 20 million. All right, we'll get into that shortly. But I just want to get into some of the things that you've said. And so, do you have a problem with all aspects of the law? Because I mean, when you look at child pornography, when you look at cyberbullying and other cybercrimes, doesn't that warrant the kind of efforts that the government has so far made? Well, the provisions on child pornography are very clear and concise. If you read through the law, it is very thorough and very specific, that if you possess, distribute, and so on and so forth. But the provisions on bullying and revenge porn are very vague. so that you might find that they don't even meet the constitutional master, where for a law to be constitutional, it must be clear and concise,
right.
And then it must be legitimate in an open and democratic society and proportionate.
All right.
So it's not proportionate because cyberbullying is done by the caliber of people mostly who cannot afford.
And maybe that's the reason why they should keep off. Let me hear the sentiments of Dennis. What's your take on this particular law?
I think first and foremost, we need to know what's the background of this computer and cybercrime bill.
Yeah.
First, when you talk about cybercrime, it affects in different perspectives. We can talk about the social part of it, financial part of it, national part of it. So the politicians, the one who are pushing this thing, so they want to cover themselves. So maybe it's more of social political part of it. But to me, I think it has both the negative part of it and positive part of it.
What would you say? Yeah, the positives maybe?
Positive is like the fake news. Right now, it's very prime, and if it hits on you, you know exactly how it affects.
Yeah.
On the other side, the negative part of it is now stifling the media and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But don't you think that, okay, like say for a media house like KTN or any other, that by the time we're coming out there and saying something about this person, that information, even by the tenets of journalism, should be verifiable, should be accurate. Just going back to the basics of, what you mentioned about the media and, and press freedom.
Okay, like right now, the traditional way of media has been like things has to be verified. But right now, media, the social media part of it, things are happening each and every day. At the moment that a thing comes out, it's already on news. But so we have to verify. If it's not verified and it's a wrong thing, it's going to affect a number of people.
All right.
So fake news, I think it's a way over.
So you're supporting the move to, to have these hefty fines on, people who distribute the fake news?
I said they have the positive and negative part of each. So it depends with, if you're going to media, if you're a blogger and you're doing something that is going to affect someone, and at the end of the day, this thing is not real, then you have to be punished.
All right.
So you have to be very responsible. Before you do anything, you have to be responsible.
All right. Yeah. Let me come to you, Demas, also. I want us to look at, specific details of this particular law, and I want us to start with maybe with the fake news, which, like he mentioned, is, right now, you go online and you do not know what is real, what is not. Let's just also just have a definition of fake news. We'll have some graphics for you here. All right, so there you have it on your screens. All right, so it says a person who intentionally publishes false publications, misleading or fictitious data, or misinforms with the intent that the data shall be considered or acted upon as authentic with or without any financial gain, commits an offense and shall, on conviction, be liable to a time not exceeding 5 million. Fine not exceeding 5 million shillings or an imprisonment term not exceeding 2 years or both. So coming to you, Demas, do you support this? I mean, does this make sense to you, considering really, the kind of times that we're in?
Yes. Misleading or fictitious data. What I may consider misleading, you may not consider misleading. And that is why laws must be must be able to be defined. 2 years ago, the High Court declared that misuse of a licensed telecommunication device, Section 29 of KICA, was unconstitutional. And part of it was that it uses words like this, obscene in character, causes undue anxiety, words that are not verifiable, words that are subjective.
Right.
So this law will be used against people who are criticizing government, mostly, yeah, and marginalized people. It will not be applied the way people are imagining. Problematic laws like this are very, they have a chilling effect on freedom of expression because just the thought of being arrested, and people are usually arrested on Friday, yeah, and you might be arrested and not charged.
Right.
But now the state has the machinery, have the legal backing to arrest you for something that is alleged to be fake or false or misleading.
All right.
Yeah.
But don't you think that it's capping a very important, let's say even like, you know, in the past we've seen, you know, fake documentation regarding, you know, some serious issues, even matters to do with security in the country, and you receive it and you pass it on and you post it on your pages, and it's all fake. Then you cause, you know, some mood or situation in the country in your own small way. So how are you supposed to cap that then?
You see, the digital age has given us an unprecedented flow of information, right? But even 100 years, even 50 years ago, we had gossip.
Right.
Yes, we had propaganda. Yeah, and we are just not waking up to the reality of the world we are in. And the only solution to fighting fake news is having media houses like this providing thoroughly researched stories, so that in the marketplace of ideas, the good ideas will be the ones on top. Otherwise...
but you know that's not the truth. That's the ideal situation.
Yeah.
Because if, as much as even as a media house will try and say like, okay, this is not what happened, but this is it. By the time you're saying that things have gone viral, everybody has, the wrong piece of information.
Yes.
So it's really hard to also negate that.
Yeah, there's an assumption that Kenyans are total buffoons, that if you see something, you immediately believe it's true.
Yeah.
In an environment like we are in, you will receive something from WhatsApp or something, and you'll think twice about it,
right.
Basically. And if we learned anything from last year's election cycle, is that information is mostly misleading. But to criminalize it is something else. Criminalizing free speech is only allowed when it is propagating hate, propagating genocide and war.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I want us to get to another tenet. Apart from the fake news, of course, it's highlighting issues to do with cyberbullying. And this is one thing that has affected very many people. Maybe, Demas, you might not be a victim of that, but, a situation whereby, there's a lot of hate, keyboard warriors. We've even seen young people commit suicide because of, all this hatred on social media. What is your take on this? That now it's going to, going to be penalized if indeed you spread some sort of insults or, insults on somebody else.
Okay, cyberbullying and cyberstalking should not happen at all, because you find like, for example, today I have your number, I get your number from this interview, then I start texting you, and it's oppressive.
Yeah.
That should not happen. So anytime that we have people being like sending content that are not, and I don't want to consume them, should not happen at all. Yeah.
So are you saying that that's a plus with this particular law?
That's a plus, especially if you've been a victim for it.
All right. Demas, what are your thoughts on this one?
Even with provisions such as let me take you back to something like hate speech, which is a crime under Kenyan law.
Yes.
But do you know that almost no one has been successfully prosecuted on hate speech? Because it is so, if you look at the provision, it's so vague, it's so unclear. And that is my problem with the provisions of cyberbullying. It's not very clear so that it will be just upon the prosecutor and the police and the judge to decide whether or not you're guilty, but it is not a very subjective provision. They could have done a better job, because I understand that it's a big problem in society right now. But there was no urgency, so much so that we could not have made it clearer. Yeah.
So you're saying that what should have been made clear?
What makes you liable? Yeah, because there are situations where, like something like revenge porn, where for some reason you accessed nude photos of someone. Mostly this comes out of intimate relationship with each other, and then someone distributes that image. So we have, I think it's section 37 of the Act that talks about that. But it just talks about distributing images that are obscene or intimate. But what image is intimate per se?
It could be anything. It could be the same nude pictures that you're talking about.
Just look at the flyers we usually have of tourists. You look at women who are topless, the ones from these indigenous tribes in Kenya. If that was done to your mother, you'd have a problem with it. But they don't have a problem with it. So it becomes so subjective.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll continue the conversation in a few moments. Also, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this conversation. Hashtag is KTN News Center.